The officers started surrounding our property. Our neighbors and other protesters started gathering around, demanding that the officers leave. There was patent fear that filled our home. Although me and Garrison tried to calm ourselves down, knowing that no matter what, our constitutional rights could not be breached by authorities that claim to be law enforcing bodies themselves. In no time, the scene only became more violent. Officers from the truck started shooting pepper spray at the protesters. The officers stood at the door and they were pointing their guns at us. 10 officers that were all armed were standing in front of me and my family. Words can never be sufficient for me to portray what sorts of horror we felt in this moment.
We've heard testimony over and over again from American citizens. War veterans like George Retes, who was arrested just going to work. Teachers like Miramar Martinez, who was shot 5 times and had 7 bullets put in her that went in and out of her body by her own government. We had agents that bragged about shooting U.S. citizens to their friends in other agencies. We've heard about testimony from Renee Good's brothers about Americans across the country who have been impacted, like themselves, who lost their own sister because a DHS officer shot her dead without justification. And we heard testimony today from Teyena Gibson Brown, a citizen and a healthcare worker, whose home was sworn by federal agents with military equipment and without a legal warrant. We're looking out for the Constitution and the rule of law, and Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and Donald Trump are not going to stop that work. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia. I'm going to introduce the witnesses and then call on them for your testimony. Teyana Gibson Brown is a United States citizen and resident of Minneapolis. In January, federal immigration agents raided her home, her family's home, and took her husband without a judicial warrant. Eric Schwank was formerly an assistant chief counsel with ICE. From September of last year until earlier this month, he served as a trainer for ICE. He dealt with recruits at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. Steve Bunnell is a former general counsel of the Department of Homeland Security and a former chief of the criminal division at the United States Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia, a distinguished, longstanding prosecutor. We welcome all of you, and Ms. Gibson Brown, if you would please begin your testimony.
I'd like to start by saying thank you for the invite to be here to tell my story. I would also like to start by saying 12/29 was the date my husband checked in with ICE. He had another appointment on January 26th. This all happened on my oldest son's birthday. My name is Teyana Gibson Brown, and today I stand before you not just to speak, but to bear witness. I am here to share a deeply personal and painful experience, how me and my family's Fourth Amendment were violated. Most days when I get off of my night shifts, the mornings have a usual routine for me. I know what to expect, and I expected the same routine of my morning on January 11th. I got off of work around 7:30 a.m., got home, and went to sleep at around 8:30. Except on this day, I was woken up to my husband, Garrison William Gibson Brown, at around 9:30 a.m., telling me that ICE was outside of our home, banging at the door. The second I woke up, I could tell how terrified my husband was. This fear intensified when the constant banging at the door woke our 9-year-old daughter, Miss Anna, up. And from there, the fear only intensified. Garrison went to the door and asked the officers through the closed door about why they were at our home. Followed with this, he asked them if they had a warrant. The officers at the door told Garrison that they did have a warrant, and it was signed by a judge. When Garrison asked to see the warrant, the officer simply ignored his request. Although my husband and I may not be experts in the legality of some situations, we are aware of the fundamentals and understood how the Fourth Amendment shielded us from arbitrary government searches and seizures. Given this, my husband repeatedly requested to see the warrant. The circumstances outside of our home only intensified. We knew our rights, though. We knew no one could just barge into our homes without a warrant because this space was ours. The officers started surrounding our property. Our neighbors and other protesters started gathering around, demanding that the officers leave. There was patent fear that filled our home. Although me and Garrison tried to calm ourselves down, knowing that no matter what, our constitutional rights could not be breached by authorities that claim to be law enforcing bodies themselves. In no time, the scene only became more violent. Officers from the truck started shooting pepper spray at the protesters. Amid all of this, but 10 officers approached my front door. They looked like SWAT agents, holding each other's shoulders like a barricade. One of them grabbed a protester that was in the front of my yard from the front of his neck and the back of his head and slung him in the icy ground. The officers walked up to my door and started ramming the door. They hit the door 3 times until the door popped open. My stomach fell. I heard the door pop and I realized we were no longer protected. Far away from ever experiencing anything like this. We've never known anything of the sort. The officers stood at the door and they were pointing their guns at us. 10 officers that were all armed were standing in front of me and my family. Words can never be sufficient for me to portray what sorts of horror we felt in this moment. I stood between the officers and Garrison, and I asked the officers yet again to show me the warrant. Despite all of this, they did not show me anything. My daughter and my little cousin, both children, were rushed in the room by my sister and were told to hide in the closet. The fear in my daughter's eyes.
Times of India videos, your daily dose of India and the world. Global news, different views, and sharp analysis.
Pressure of expectation from your fans, your supporters.
That has often served as a backdrop for several Bollywood.
You're not a brute majority anymore. If you individually take out Teary.
Making sense of global conflicts. Tracking the new emerging world order.
Strike on Israeli military bases.
A multi-pronged.
To stay out of harm's way as Israel started bombing targets across.
Understanding changing alliances in a polarized world. Tune into TOI videos for all this and more. Click on the bell icon to subscribe and never miss an update.